Although I was not totally all with my senses, last night was my first encounter with Salvia divinorum. I was with some friends at a party and I had a couple of drinks when it was suggested that we all go back to our friend C's house for some weed. We all agreed this was the thing to do since none of us knew any of the people at the party, and it was pretty lame. It was one of those parties where there's a bunch of people who, for them, their whole life revolves around alcohol. Almost like a frat party without the affiliation of a frat. It was actually a birthday party for one of the girls who by the time I had arrived had reached that point in alcohol consumption where you know she's gonna be praying to a porcelain god real soon. My friend and I had even bought her a present, a candle, but I didn't want to hand it over to her just yet. My original plan for the night was to get just drunk enough to where it didn't matter that I didn't know anyone. I would be so goddamn friendly everyone would pretend to know me. I had just achieved this state by the time we were ready to go. On the way to C's house, I mentioned Salvia, because it was something I was interested in and I hadn't gotten the chance to get in touch with C for quite some time. He said that he had some. So to make a long story short, he said it was cool if I tried it but I had to get stoned first. I, not wanting to ruin my chance for a new experience, said okay. Even though I wasn't too keen on getting stoned and trying Salvia all the while being a little tipsy, but I said what the hell. I still to date have done more mushrooms at one time than anyone else I know personally, so I figured I could probably handle the trip. We got a little stoned and then he sat me down on his couch. Played some Colombian music over the speakers and got out the Salvia. He said the best way to do it was by taking 3 large hits in a row without breathing in between. With each hit, I would cash the bowl and so he'd be packing bowls for me in between each one. I abided by these rules to the point another friend of mine did not. And I assume that this is why his report of the events seems a little bizarre to me. At about the time I started taking the 3rd hit, I had to use all my concentration just to keep up with what I was supposed to be doing. I kept telling myself, okay, just one more hit, then you can sit back and relax. I felt like there was a train heading in my direction and I had to brace myself for the impact by sitting back and letting it happen. Any state of tension would knock me off balance and I wouldn't survive the collision. I finished and I sat back, exhausted. Then I recall thinking, what's happening to me? A question I often ask myself when beginning a psychedelic experience. Then bang. The collision came and my body and mind achieved a time fission. What my body seemed to be doing was 5 seconds. I don't know why 5, but at the time it seemed to be exactly 5 seconds, ahead of when I was deciding to do these things. It was like my mind had been shifted to know what would happen 5 seconds in the future, so I actually found myself deciding to go into the kitchen and get some water and then 5 seconds later watching this motion occur. This, of course, happened after I sat for a while and laughed my ass off at the situation I was in. How could I explain this to the rest of them? Would they understand? I looked at the stoned faces all around me and figured that they wouldn't, so I kept the information to myself. It was difficult at first to get used to living 5 seconds in the future, but after some quick practice and keeping my head on straight and not even having the fear enter my mind, I'm getting better and better at that one. I was able to exist in this strange temporal state. The hardest thing was communicating. My mind, I think it was the pot, had a certain mental grain of sand in it that had to be polished over into a pearl before the agitation would cease. I finally just started agreeing with everything, figuring that was easier than to try and dispute some claim or rather. So I found myself a participant in the kind of strange rituals only a journeyer would find himself in. I agreed to put on the polyester pants that were too small. I agreed to place a tie around my forehead like a bandana. I agreed to put on an apron from the kitchen. I agreed to spout nonsense in a directed form instead to coherent sentences that made valid point about the society in which we live. I always have the sense that if I wanted to in that situation, I could make the most profound discoveries mankind has ever made about science and philosophy, but I'm always surrounded by a bunch of morons who can't understand anything. Jusdt, give them what they want. I think, spin around like an idiot and talk about how the sky is falling. Be Chicken Little. Have a bad English accent. Make wild allegations. Tell a story that uses foul language. If the chicken thing comes up again, deny it. You're better off denying everything about yourself than you would be if you suddenly started agreeing with everything everyone ever said about you. These thoughts usually get me through something tough. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being too far and 1 being nowhere near cool. I rate Salvia a dangerous 9. I would not want to try this experience alone. It could have been dangerous and have had lasting effects upon my mind. I could easily forget what is okay to do and what is not okay. It's nice to have someone there who is steady enough to remember and to point it out to you.